Well, let's now welcome in a few more to talk about this. We've got Mark Ogden, Ian Darke and Frank Leboeuf as well. But Craig, I want to start with you because you're someone who has criticised previous Manchester United managers, maybe for not putting the foot down when they should have. Does this show it's a new era at the club under Ten Hag?
Well, yes, but it also shows it's no longer the old boys' club. Favouritism. And quite frankly, as far as I'm concerned, if he said he's never going to play for the club again, or we're going to sell him, I would be quite happy with that. But I don't think he wants to cut his nose off to spite his face. He's dealt with the situation. He's shown who the boss is. He's shown there's no favouritism. And I think that's important. And that's a marker for the rest of the players, that no matter who you are, if you step out of line, then I'm the boss and I make the decisions. It's been crystal clear on the football decisions that he's made, and now he's making the disciplinary decisions. So I tip my cap to how he's handled this so far.
And does it feel differently around the club, Mark? Is there an air of this, the atmosphere different since Erik Ten Hag's come in?
Yeah, absolutely. You get a sense now that there really is a boss, a guy that's in charge and somebody that everyone looks towards as being the guy who makes the big decisions and is the guy that's behind the big decisions. So there is a different air. There's a different sense that the supporters feel as though he is the guy that's in charge. The fans feel like, the players feel like he's in charge. And I think with Ed Woodward going as well as a different regime at the top of the club, I think they're letting him get on with it. So there's definitely a different mood. And like Craig said, he's made a statement there. And I think he's taken on his biggest player, not necessarily his best player, but his biggest player, the guy that has the biggest kind of reputation globally. I think it's a massive, massive statement. I think it shows how much in charge he is.
Yeah, it's interesting you talk about the global superstar there, Ian. How much of a burden is an ageing superstar at a club? You've seen plenty of Premier League action in your time.
Well, yeah, but you don't like to think that Cristiano Ronaldo's got to a stage now where he's deluding himself that he's still the same power, but it begins to look like that because United's return of points is better when he's not playing in the team. I mean, what he did really was unforgivable. I mean, he calls it a heat-of-the-moment decision. It was an open revolt, wasn't it? You don't just do that on the heat of the moment, get up, walk 70 yards and down the tunnel, and from what we're hearing, get in your car and go home on what was the best performance of the season by United to beat Spurs. I mean, but I'm just wondering, and maybe Mark will know a little bit more about that because he's closer to Manchester United. It sounded rather like, though, that after this weekend, he'd be welcome back in the fold and he may even be in the team for the European game against Sheriff next week.
That does seem to be the case, right, Mark?
Yeah, I mean, after the Chelsea game, which he's not available for, which he's not been selected for, they've got 6 games before the World Cup. Now, there's 2 Europa League games and a Carabao Cup tie against Aston Villa, so it would be silly for Ten Hag to really make up all those games. United have got one striker right now in Marcus Rashford, and he's not really a striker. So it would be foolish for United or Ten Hag to say that's it for Ronaldo, he's finished, because they might need him. And, get to the World Cup, and then I think once the World Cup is out of the way, they'll have a chance to make a decision, move him on, if they can move him on. But, yeah, you don't say a player's finished when you've got 5, 6, 7 big games before the World Cup. You've got to keep him in the fold and hope that he performs. But I think by January time, he'll be on his way if they can find somebody to take him. And that's been the problem all along. Nobody wants him.
So is that right, to put your foot down but not say that this player and you are finished? Well,
as I said at the start, there's no point as a manager cutting your nose off to spite your face. He's just got to deal with it until they can get him out. Look, he's still number 1 at Portugal. He's still the kingpin there. That'll change. That'll change. That's the next one. But it'll happen eventually. But he was a problem in the summer, wasn't he? He was a big headache for Ten Hag in the summer when he came in. Wanted to move, didn't turn up to the tour, or turned up late, whatever it is, I can't remember. Wanted a transfer, was desperate to move, all this. And it's carried on into the season. It is carried on. He's just a problem for this manager at the moment and this football club. There's no doubt about it.
But I think he's handled well. I think everything about it, Ten Hag has handled very well, from the way he put his foot down, what he's had to say about it. And I don't have a problem with him bringing Ronaldo back in for the Europa League games. He has a squad that he has to manage over the course of a season. And try to get this squad into the top 4 at the very least. he's going to have to rely on just about every single warm body that he can. And he's dealt with this situation of Ronaldo walking off. He's dealt with the situation of him refusing to come on as a substitute, as now reported. And now you move past that. You turn the page, and what is next? What is in the best interest of the football club? And while everybody's a little taken aback by the way Ten Hag has handled it and how do you handle these global superstars, it is the perfect example for him to establish who he is at that club. Because had it been Anthony Martial, not to pick on Martial for any reason, but for some reason his name comes first to mind. If it were Martial and this exact thing happened and Ten Hag reacted the exact same way, the question would then be, well, if it were Ronaldo, he wouldn't be this harsh or something of the sort. And there's that element of doubt about his authority. But the fact that it's Ronaldo, the fact that it's the biggest name in that dressing room, and he's dealt with it as firmly as he has, I think sends a message to everybody else that nobody's bigger than this football club. It is the perfect player, the perfect situation, and now you have to move past in a way that's in the best interest of the football club.
He came off against Newcastle just a few days previous and was sulking. Never shook. I think it was in Newcastle. Yeah, it was. He came off and walked past the manager. He's got to realise that he is not the number one star that he once was. That raised a few eyebrows and gave a few lines to the journalists and people like us. And then he carried that on with the nonsense from the... who did he play again? The big game, Man United? Tottenham.
Spurs, yeah, yes, sir.
He carried on from the Tottenham game. It got even worse. So, quite frankly, yes, he has to keep him around just now. But honestly, I think if there's another episode, if there's another episode where he's bringing the club into disrepute, he's disrespecting his manager, his teammates, or whatever, he's probably going to get a chance because he's needed. But if there's another scenario, I'd put him, do what they used to do in the old days. I will pay you. Go and train with the reserves. I'm sorry, but you just can't keep having it. He's dealing with it at the moment, but if there's any more scenarios, I would put him to the side.
Do you think that would be an option now, Mark?
Well, he's training within the 21s while he's not training with the first team because he's not eligible for the team on Saturday. He's also not training with the first team, so he's already in the 21s. Whether that becomes a permanent thing is a different matter. But, Craig's got a point that how many chances can you give the guy? I saw his statement on Instagram last night, and that, for me, that was definitely climbed down by Ronaldo, talking about the heat of the moment. That's the first time I've heard him say that, he was in the wrong. He didn't say I was in the wrong, but he pretty much said it in other words. So I think Ronaldo accepts now that his stature is not what it was, as Craig said. And I think he realises that maybe he's going to have to knuckle down and be part of the team rather than be the big guy that he used to be, because he isn't the big guy anymore. He's been an amazing player. We all know what a fantastic player he's been, but he has become a player that's lost a bit of pace in the last 12 months. He's not as effective as he was, and he is no longer the guy that needs to be the first name on the team sheet. So, and I think he realises that once he leaves United, it could be going anywhere. It could be off to the Middle East, the US. This is the last of Ronaldo on the big stage, because no big club on a par with United or even close to United is going to take him now. So this is the end. This is... the World Cup is coming up. That could be the farewell in many ways. But once he leaves United, that's it. His top-level career is over. So maybe he needs to realise it. You're going to have to enjoy it while it lasts, because it's not going to last much longer.
Just briefly, the timing of this is actually very good, in a sense, because Man United are on an upward trajectory. They started to play better. As Oggy said earlier, that was the best performance of the season. And they've started to look a lot better. So all of a sudden the fans are buying in to this Ten Hag mantra. Had the results continued in the manner in which they started the season, maybe the bulk of the fans would have went on Ronaldo's side. Does that make sense? The fact that Erik Ten Hag not only has shown leadership off the field, but he's shown in a brief spell, there's no immediate success or guaranteed success, but it's a damn sight better than it was. It's pacey, it's fast, it's energetic, there's pressing, there's good defending, all the things that have been missing from United. They've managed to shoehorn them into some of the games, particularly the Tottenham game. So that gives him even more power, even more standing that he can say, look what we're trying to achieve. This is the road that we're on, and I do not need this guy derailing it. But had it come at a time when they were struggling and he was treating Ronaldo in this manner, I think quite a lot of the fans and media maybe had turned on him.
Let me also just say, Mark is far kinder to that statement than I was. That was not a step down by any measure. In my, Ronaldo spent more time talking about growing up watching players of old than talking about any error that he may have made. Saying that it was the heat of the moment, okay, great, but I at no point reading that statement did it feel like he accepted any responsibility or he was sorry. Now, he may have said that privately, but publicly, he's just kind of stood his ground, in my opinion.
That's why I'm not on Instagram.
And because you're not, we're going to bring you a reminder in just a moment of that statement. But as we are talking about players of old, Frank, did you ever see anything like this during your playing
Why
days?
do you call Frank players of old?
Yeah, Craig Burley once. He didn't want to play for Chelsea once, and I remember that clearly. No, I'm kidding, of course. But no, I never seen that in my life. It wouldn't have been accepted in our generation. I think even the best player in the world, maybe Gianfranco Zola, when he was at Chelsea with us, he would have said that. He would have gone to the tunnel before the end of the game. He would have had a very nice reception, in the dressing room after the game. That's what it is. But I think we didn't talk about Luke Shaw's comment when he talked about Ten Hag, saying that the guy was right to put him out of the field because he wasn't good at the beginning of the season. And he says something that we have to read between the lines when he said, what is good with Ten Hag is when you're not good, you don't play. I think it was a message sent to Ronaldo as well. So if the teammates think the same as Ten Hag, I think there is something which makes me think that it's over for Ronaldo. I really think that even if the guy thinks that he might be needed, I don't think Ten Hag is going to use him, except he has a pandemia and some players and many players can play. But he will try to avoid playing Ronaldo, is what I think. And only Ronaldo fans won't agree with me and won't agree with Ten Hag's decision, because at the end of the day, enough is enough. You had a warming, you do it a second time, you don't even recognize that you made a mistake. You just say, I'm here for the team. No, you're not here for the team. What you did is unacceptable, and you wouldn't be forgiven by the coach, because the coach he has a pride, and the fans, also the Manchester United fans, won't accept what you just did because it's unacceptable.
Ian, you were shaking your head as well when Mark was talking about the post that Cristiano Ronaldo put out on Instagram. You're not impressed with that?
No, not at all. I mean, this is a guy of 37 who's been playing for 2 decades. He doesn't suddenly decide he's going to walk off down the tunnel while the game's still going on, get in his car and go home. It's totally unacceptable. I mean, let's get this right. Yeah, I understand the pragmatic view that they're a bit short of strikers and they might need him. But imagine if Sir Alex Ferguson, one of his players, had done that. Do you think he'd be back in the team within a week? He wouldn't have touched the ground, I don't think, for the rest of the season. So it's a statement by Erik ten Hag, and so far he's handled it well, but it's only a statement apparently until next Monday when Ronaldo's back in the fold.
Well, we're going to give you a reminder of what he did say on Instagram.
in Madrid or Manchester?
I think talking about Manchester has brought the rain, although the rain does come often in October in Madrid, let me tell you. But here is what Cristiano Ronaldo did say. Just a reminder, we know you're not there.
Well, that's the only reason I come in today.
As I've always done throughout my career, I try to live and play respectfully towards my colleagues and adversaries and my coaches. That hasn't changed. I haven't changed. I'm the same person and the same professional that I have been for the last 20 years, playing elite football, and respect has always played a very important role in my decision-making process. I started very young. The older and most experienced players' examples were always important to me. Therefore, later on, I've always tried to set the example myself for the youngsters that grew in all the teams that I've represented. Unfortunately, that's not always possible, and sometimes the heat of the moment gets the best of us. There's more. Right now, I just feel that I have to keep working hard in Carrington, support my teammates, and be ready for everything in any given game. Giving in to the pressure is not an option. It never was. This is Manchester United, and united we must stand. Soon, we'll be together again.
More.
No,
More!
Please,
Spill
no.
it! Spill more!
Frank, what's your reaction to the Instagram post?
It's exactly the contrary of what he did against the Spurs when he left. When he says, it's exactly what he didn't do. So I don't understand the comment. I'm pretty sure it's not him who wrote it, and I'm pretty sure that deeply he completely thinks the opposite. It's what he showed us to the world, that he doesn't care. He wants to do, like he said, on only one sentence, the hit of the moment. But you have like 70 or 80 minutes to think about it. Yeah, I'm not going to play. Will I stay seated, or will I go and show to the world that I'm unhappy? You know, I just go back to the Newcastle game when he went out, and Craig was mentioning it. When he went out, he was nodding his head like it's not possible. Why me? Why the coach does that? He was doing that all the time, because he knew the TVs will be on him. That's unacceptable again. You know, I was very fan of Ronaldo. I love the guy, the player that he was for all the years. But what he did against Newcastle when he went out and against Tottenham, again, is unacceptable.
I've been saying for weeks, it's not, you know, on the show every now and again, Ronaldo gets brought up, or he wasn't playing. I kept saying, Ronaldo's not the story anymore on the field. He's the story at the moment, but it's not for what he's doing on the field. It's for what he's doing when he's not on the field. That's where he's the story. Maybe that's what he wanted. Maybe he wants this limelight, this discussion about him, these headlines about him, because nobody's talking about him really on the field. Yes, people will mention the goals he scored last year, and that's fine. But this is a new coach. This is a new direction for Manchester United. This is the rejuvenation of Marcus Rashford and Jadon Sancho looking more like himself. The introduction of Antony. The arrival of Casemiro as a big signing. This is a new direction, and that direction does not include Cristiano Ronaldo. So listen, maybe this was I'll get myself some headlines and I'll get them talking about me, as well as I'm upset and this is not what I want, because nobody's talking about Cristiano Ronaldo being in the first 11 for Man United. Nobody's surprised when he's on the bench. So he's maybe hopefully, or he's hoping he's going to create a different narrative. Let's get them talking about me again, because other people are doing the business on the field.
I don't think there's any maybe to it at all. If he says to Ten Hag, I'm not coming on as a substitute, then it's on Eric Ten Hag and the club as to how they manage that. Maybe nobody hears a thing about it. Nobody hears that Ronaldo refused to come on as substitute. They keep that in-house. But doing that and then walking down the touchline, walking the 50 yards or whatever it is before the final whistle, everybody knows something's happening now. And he directly puts himself in the headlines, knowingly puts himself in the headlines. And so to Craig's point, it's not a maybe he wanted to be the story. He absolutely did. He absolutely did.
Ian?
Yeah, I mean, it does look like that. I do believe he was probably emotional and feeling pretty cheesed off with everything, and that's why he did it. I mean, in his defence, I would say this. I've heard on pretty good authority that he is pretty good with the young players at Manchester United and giving advice about lifestyle and that kind of thing. So it isn't all a bad story for him, but this was unacceptable what he did this time, and he's got to pay the penalty. I'm just a bit surprised that he's coming back as quickly as he's apparently is going to, but you know, I take the point. Maybe they need him to play because they've got injuries in the striking department, but if you think ahead, possibly his future at Manchester United is going to be quite short now, you'd think.
Think about this. Sorry, think about this. There'll be some out there making a sort of thinly veiled excuse for him in our job, I'm sure.
There's quite a few.
Yeah, I'm sure there is. Think about it. And I was never his biggest fan when he was at Man United, Paul Pogba. Think he's a great talent. Was never his biggest fan at Man United. But I really didn't care what colour his hair was. I really didn't care what his style of clothes he wore. All I cared about was what he did on the field. But can you imagine, because some people got upset about, oh, Paul Pogba's more interested in doing his hair, he's more interested in wearing earrings and doing all this. Can you imagine if that was Pogba? Can you imagine the reaction when he was a Man United player? He would have been dragged through the streets of Manchester, metaphorically speaking. He would never have got any leeway whatsoever from anybody, fans, media, anybody. Because that's the way he was, for some reason, treated at that club. Harry Maguire, probably similar. Harry Maguire's not been great. That's stating the obvious. But when Harry Maguire makes any kind of mistake, he is absolutely battered from pillar to post. Not that he's trying to make mistakes, he's just not playing well. So there seems to be, and has been at this club and surrounding this club for quite a period now, rules for some and rules for others.
But maybe not anymore now with Eric Ten Hag around. We'll see, right?
That's a good thing.
Ian, how do you think, Ian, it affects Ronaldo's legacy at Manchester United?
Well, I think he'll always be loved and revered for what he did there the first time. And, of course, he went on to have the stellar career, one of the great players to have ever graced the game. Let's be honest about it. He's right up there, isn't he, in the top 5 all-time. You can have that argument and that debate another day. So, yeah, I think this second coming, if you like, he's not been quite the Messiah, but then this is an older Cristiano Ronaldo. I think the problem Manchester United might have is, I mean, Mark again might know more about this, it's not going to be that easy to find another club to take him, not on the kind of money that he's on, and then some managers of bigger clubs are probably going to shy away from him because it's hard to handle that big an ego as Ten Hag is finding and others before him have found.
Yeah, we've not got Mark with us at the moment, but we will just continue the chat about this one. It does seem that you are all unanimous.
Well, I was told in the summer, I think it might have been Gab or one of our journos, that when he was trying to force a move, and I think United were happy for that to happen if it had been the right move, was that money wasn't the big object for him. Money wasn't the driving force anymore. It was playing in the Champions League. It was playing regular. It was being happy at his age and getting regular football. So if it's not about the money, your player and your representatives have to manage that and take the appropriate cut in salary. But as Ian said, who the hell's want a guy coming in now that's going to give him these problems?
Yeah.
You just don't. And maybe that's one of the reasons Thomas Tuchel didn't want him. He didn't want him because he couldn't run, he wouldn't press. And when he left him out at Chelsea, as might have happened when he was manager, this is the issues that he was going to have.
We were just talking, Mark, with Ian about the legacy that Ronaldo will leave now at Manchester United and if this will affect things. I'm just interested to know what the general feeling is in Manchester at the moment among Manchester United fans about the player.
It has tarnished his legacy. I mean, look, United fans have loved him for a long time. I think they'll always have that admiration for him. But I do think that he's tarnishing his reputation now because the way he's behaving. I think United fans can see that Ten Hag is making progress. He's building a team. He's building a team spirit. And Ronaldo's not part of it, and he's not buying into it. So I think the United fans have now moved on. They're thinking, look, Ten Hag is the guy. He's the future. And Ronaldo is just behaving like a bit of a child, to be honest. And I don't think it's going down very well. And I think, what Craig said before about Pogba, it would have been, it would have been a much bigger deal with Pogba. But I think it is a big deal with Ronaldo. I think the fans have lost a lot of respect for him. They'll always have that, like I say, that affection for him because of how good he was in the first place. But people cast people's minds back. This happened in the first spell at United. There was a game that I was at when United played Sunderland back in, I think, 2008-09, and he substituted himself. Now, Sir Alex Ferguson at the time said, he had a hip injury, but he walked off the pitch before the end of the game. So this isn't the first time he's done this. And I think it has always been the Ronaldo show. So, maybe this was his effort to try and force United's hand and try and force a move in January. But the problem has been, right from day one when he said he wanted to leave in the summer, nobody has wanted him. Nobody's wanted him at £500,000 a week, and nobody's wanted him at half of that. And that's the problem. The same will happen in January. Nobody wants him because he's too much of a costly exercise and a problem to fit into the team. He's 38 in February. Nobody wants him.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN+.